Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Betrayed Man's Diary for more stories. I always thought if my marriage ended, it would be over something like financial stress, or maybe one of us simply falling out of love after years of wear and tear. But I never imagined it would go down like this, with deceit hiding under the polished facade of a therapy session, with my wife's lover nodding solemnly at my pain, pen poised on a notepad, already knowing how the story would end. This is the story of how my wife asked for space and used that time to start an affair with our family therapist. I was there. I paid for the sessions. I drove us to the clinic. I opened my chest in that quiet, softly lit room. And he sat there, our therapist, calm, deliberate, thoughtful, all while planning his next dinner date with my wife. This is what betrayal feels like when it's professionally certified. We weren't always broken. There was a time when Marissa would laugh at my jokes, the real ones, not just the polite chuckles that came later. There was warmth in our marriage, even in the little things. A post-it on the mirror saying, "Good luck today." A spontaneous kiss while passing in the kitchen, Saturday morning grocery trips that felt like dates. We were just us. But life has a way of eating at your foundation slowly. Stressors build, long hours at work, miscarriages, the death of her father, my layoff scare last year. Bit by bit, we stopped syncing. Communication dried up. Marissa became distant. At first I chalked it up to grief or depression, and she didn't correct me. So we agreed to see a therapist. Not because things were falling apart, but because we wanted to make sure they didn't. Dr. Neil Carter came recommended by a friend of mine, a seasoned therapist in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and a reassuring presence. His office was textbook comforting. Bookshelves, neutral earth tones, two couches that faced each other with a coffee table between. He always had herbal tea brewing, and the air smelled like cinnamon and clean linen. From our first session, Marissa talked more than I did. She was open, articulate, even vulnerable. I admired her honesty. I thought this was the real work of rebuilding a relationship. Dr. Carter was professional, patient. He'd look at each of us when we spoke, nodding, sometimes furrowing his brow when I said something clumsy. I was nervous at first. Therapy made me feel like I was on trial. But he had a way of diffusing tension. "We're not here to point fingers," he'd say. "We're here to find understanding." For the first few months, we went weekly, then bi-weekly, and slowly, I began to feel some hope again. Until the night she told me she needed time. It was a Thursday night. She waited until we had finished dinner. Pasta, ironically, my favorite. She looked at me across the table and said, "I think I need some time to myself." I blinked. Like a night away? Or, no, I mean a break. I pushed my plate aside, appetite gone. From the marriage? Not necessarily. Just, I need space to think. I don't know who I am right now, and I don't want to figure that out while pretending everything's fine. I sat back in my chair, stunned. "Is this something you've been planning?" "No," she said too quickly. Then after a pause, "Maybe. I've been feeling this way for a while. I just didn't know how to say it." "And Carter? Does he know?" She hesitated. "We've talked about it in general terms, not specifics." I felt something cold coil in my gut. "So you've had individual sessions?" "Yes. Sometimes. You did too, remember?" "Yeah. Once. And we talked about my job." She got quiet then. I could see her brain working behind her eyes. That's when I knew something wasn't right. But I didn't fight her on it. I didn't want to be that guy. So I nodded and told her I'd give her the time. She moved out the following Monday, taking a week's worth of clothes and a toothbrush. She stayed with her sister, or so she said. The first week without her felt like detox. The second felt like abandonment. We texted, but it was clinical. "Hope you're okay. Just checking in." No emojis. No pet names. Just cold, formal messages that made me feel like a distant cousin, not a husband. Dr. Carter insisted we keep our scheduled sessions. "She's sorting out a lot of emotions," he told me during one of our solo sessions. "Don't take her distance as rejection. It's part of the process." I nodded like a good student. But something in his voice felt off. Too measured. Too vague. I started noticing little things. He got a new cologne, something woodsy and sharp. He started wearing a watch that didn't look cheap. Leather strap. Polished. He began ending our sessions a few minutes early. I figured maybe he was overbooked. But one night, around 11 p.m., I saw a familiar number pop up on our phone bill. It was his. Twice. Late at night. Once on a Saturday. I told myself maybe she needed guidance. Maybe she was spiraling and he was being there for her. But something cracked open inside me that night. It wasn't the phone calls that did it. Not really. It was what she didn't say. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped replying to simple texts. When I asked if she wanted to meet up for coffee, just to talk, she said she was too emotionally drained. When I asked if she was still attending therapy, she said yes and left it at that. One night I called her, and she picked up with, "Is this important?" That wasn't Marissa. That was someone else. Someone who didn't care if I was drowning. And still, like a fool, I hoped she would come back. That this was just some bizarre phase, some moment of personal crisis that would burn out on its own. But hope is a cruel liar. Because what came next stripped away every illusion I had left. I wasn't trying to catch her. I swear to God, I wasn't. It was a Tuesday. I left work early because I couldn't concentrate. My brain had been looping the same questions for days. Why does she sound so calm? Why doesn't she ask how I'm doing? And why did her thinking time line up perfectly with Carter's sudden aloofness? I drove past Dr. Carter's office on autopilot, just looking, like a dog sniffing old footprints. That's when I saw them. Her car and his, parked side by side. And then, as I watched from across the lot behind tinted windows, I saw them exit the building. Together. Not staggered, not a client leaving before the therapist locks up. Together. She was laughing. His hand was on her lower back. She leaned into him like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. I backed out of the lot like a ghost and drove until my gas light blinked on. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the driver's seat, empty. Like someone had hollowed me out and left a skin suit behind. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face the silence, or worse, the shadows of her. I parked in a grocery store lot 20 miles out of town and just sat there, the radio whispering low like a heartbeat I barely noticed. I replayed that moment over and over, her laugh, the touch, the ease of it, like they'd done it 100 times, like there was no shame left to hide. I don't know how long I sat there before I made a decision. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even anger, not yet. It was a need for clarity. If I didn't do something, this moment would haunt me forever as a maybe. A question mark. So I drove back. It was after 9 p.m. when I pulled into Carter's office again, this time from the side street. Lights were off. Door locked. But I walked around the building anyway, checking the back. A second entrance. A small patio. 2 glasses on the outdoor table. 1 wine. 1 water. That was it. I was done pretending I didn't know. The next morning, I called the state's licensing board. It was quiet, clinical. Yes, I'd like to file a complaint against a licensed marriage and family therapist. It involves an inappropriate relationship with a client, my wife. They transferred me 3 times before I got to someone who listened without interrupting. When I told them who I was and who he was, the line went quiet for a moment. "We'll need a formal statement," they said. "And documentation if possible." "I don't have recordings," I said. "But I saw them together. I can get copies of our appointment logs." His phone number shows up on my wife's call records. "We'll investigate." Those words rang in my ears. Not comfort, just process. I hung up, went back to bed, and didn't leave for 2 days. When Marissa finally found out, I knew it wasn't from me. It was from the board's inquiry. They contacted her for confirmation of her role in the matter. She came by unannounced, no heads up, just her knocking softly on the door like she used to when she forgot her keys. I didn't let her in. She stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. She wasn't crying. Just hollow. "Like me, maybe." "You reported him," she said. "Of course I did." Silence. "You don't understand it." "No." I cut in. "I do understand. You fell for a man who listened to you while I was bleeding out on that goddamn couch. He never meant for it to happen." "Jesus, Marissa." I laughed, bitter. "He's a therapist. That's literally his one job, not to do this." She looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Instead, she just nodded. "He's under investigation now. They might revoke his license," I said. She winced. "I didn't want this." "No. You just wanted to feel seen." "Well, congratulations. Now everyone will see exactly what you did." She left after that. No apology. No explanation. No closure. Just more wreckage. Weeks passed. Friends stopped asking how I was doing because I didn't have new answers. My inbox stayed full of unopened messages, mostly condolences from people who didn't really want to talk, just wanted to be seen sending support. Carter vanished from the clinic's website. His name was removed from the directory 2 weeks after I filed. Marissa moved in with her sister, or so I thought. Eventually, I found out she had moved into a condo with him. They weren't hiding anymore. Why would they? You can't hide once the fires already burned the house down. I didn't try to win her back. There was nothing left to salvage. What I mourned wasn't her. It was the illusion. The version of us I thought we were. The marriage I thought we'd built. All of it, fake. At least for her. At least near the end. I saw them once more, at a restaurant downtown. She wore her hair the way I used to like. Loose, natural. He looked exactly the same. Composed, professional, nauseating. They were laughing. I didn't make a scene. I didn't approach them. I just left. It had been going on for nearly 5 months. That's what I eventually learned from Jenna, who, bless her heart, decided to send me screenshots of texts Marissa had accidentally left visible on a shared iPad during a family weekend. Jenna didn't know me anything, but she said, "You deserve to know how deep this went." The texts started innocent. "Thanks for the session today. I really needed that." Then they turned intimate. "I can't stop thinking about what you said, or how you looked when you said it." Finally, they became unmistakable. "Last night was incredible. I haven't felt that connected in years." The timestamps were damning. The first of those messages dated back to 3 weeks after our second couple session. That meant the moment I started believing Carter was guiding us toward healing, he was already positioning himself as her escape hatch. And she let him. 5 months. That's nearly 150 days of lies. 150 mornings where she kissed me goodbye and texted him from the driveway. 150 nights where she said she was meeting Jenna, or working late, or going for a drive to clear her head. But she wasn't clearing her head. She was crawling into bed with the man I paid to fix our marriage. She came for her things on a Thursday morning when she knew I'd be at work. I returned that evening to find the bedroom stripped down like a hotel checkout. Half-empty closet. Drawers yanked open and left askew. Jewelry box gone. Her perfume gone. Even her favorite coffee mug was missing from the dish rack. But she left the wedding album. It was sitting on the bed, spine cracked open to the page where we were laughing under a paper lantern during our reception. A note was tucked inside. This version of us was real. I'm sorry it didn't last. That was it. No signature. No goodbye. I stood there for 20 minutes, just staring at that photo. I remembered that night. How she'd gotten tipsy on champagne and danced barefoot with her nieces. How she whispered, "We're going to be so good at this," before we left for the hotel. I sat down, pulled the album into my lap, and tried to feel something. But I couldn't. She didn't just take her things. She vacuumed the feeling out of the room. I walked into the kitchen and saw her handwriting on the grocery list still magnet to the fridge. Eggs, almond milk, garlic. Like she'd be back. Like she hadn't just detonated our entire life. Word got out. Not because I told anyone, but because these things always leak. Mutual friends stopped by with casseroles and condolences. Some were neutral. Some, a few brave ones, were honest. "Man, I'm sorry. We all thought something was going on, but who wants to be that guy, right?" One of our closest couple friends, Mark and Elena, dropped by a week after she moved out. "I saw them once," Elena said, "at a gallery opening, holding hands." He kissed her cheek like it was the most normal thing. Mark looked ready to punch a wall. "He's a predator, man. He used your marriage to feed his ego." I nodded, but inside, I didn't feel angry. I felt stupid. So stupid. The following weekend, I found a single earring behind the dresser while vacuuming. One of hers, silver, twisted, the kind she wore to dinner parties when she wanted to look casual but expensive. I stared at it for 10 full minutes. Not because it meant anything anymore, but because it reminded me how thoroughly she had moved on. She hadn't even noticed it was missing. I dropped it in the trash, and then I emptied the trash. There was no one big moment of closure. No movie scene where I scream into the rain or smash dishes or finally sleep through the night. There were only tiny moments of realization that she was gone, really gone, and I was still here, still standing, still breathing. Sometimes that felt like a victory. Most days it felt like punishment. People started treating me like a walking funeral. Coworkers avoided eye contact. Friends offered stiff pats on the back, like I was a dog who'd lost a leg but was still expected to walk it off. My mother called once, said she never liked Marissa. I didn't have the energy to correct her. No one knew what to say. And the truth was, I didn't want their words. Because their words weren't going to make me unsee her leaning into Carter's touch. They weren't going to undo the 5 months of deceit played out in quiet cafes and empty hotel rooms while I was fighting for our marriage alone. I wanted silence. So I stopped answering messages. I let calls go to voicemail. And I got good at disappearing, not physically, but emotionally. I wore my invisibility like armor. If no one could see the wreckage inside, maybe I could convince myself I wasn't still buried in it. Eventually, I did go back to therapy, a new one, not Carter's kind. Her name was Dana. Mid-40s. Direct. Didn't pretend to be warm. You're angry, she said within 10 minutes of our first session. Understatement. Good. Anger has energy. We can work with that. Depression is trickier. But you're not there yet. What if I don't want to forgive them? She shrugged. Who said you have to? And just like that, I exhaled for the first time in months. I told her everything. The couch. The betrayal. The note in the wedding album. The fact that I still sometimes smelled her shampoo in the pillows and wanted to burn them all. You're not crazy, she told me. You're grieving a version of your life that turned out to be a lie. Is that better or worse than grieving a death? It's both, she said. Because they're still alive. And they chose someone else. Nights are the worst. That's when the brain rewinds everything, stitching memories into weapons. I lie there sometimes with my hand on the empty side of the bed, knowing she used to curl up against me in the dark and whisper that I made her feel safe. I wonder if she tells him that now. And I hate myself for caring. I don't want her back. That door isn't just closed, it's sealed behind concrete. But I still feel the pull of what we were. Or what I thought we were. That's the real cruelty of betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It makes you doubt your memory, your instincts, your worth. I stopped asking why. Why doesn't fix anything. It's a question that just bleeds you dry. Now I ask, what next? The idea came slowly. At first, it was just a thought that drifted in on one of those long nights when the silence buzzes too loud. Then it became a fantasy. A blank page. A city where no one looked at me like a cautionary tale. Where the coffee shops didn't remind me of whispered arguments and the therapist's office didn't exist 2 turns off Main Street. And then, it became a plan. I sold the house. The one we picked together. The one where she left her slipper under the bed and I couldn't bring myself to move it for weeks. I sold it without ceremony. No final walkthrough. No last goodbye to the garden she used to weed barefoot in the summer. I just signed the papers and left the keys on the counter. Boxes went into storage. The rest, donated, tossed, or burned in the small fire pit behind the apartment I'd rented for the interim. It felt weird at first, seeing my life in brown cardboard labeled books and kitchen and memories, maybe. But it also felt clean. The new city wasn't glamorous. It wasn't about escape or reinvention. It was about distance. I picked it because I'd never been there. Because it had enough people that I could disappear into the crowd, but not so many that I'd feel swallowed whole. I rented a small place, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a balcony with a crooked railing that overlooked a parking lot and the corner of a dog park. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No ghosts here. No echoes. I got a new phone number. New job, remote, contract work. No office goodbyes. No gossip. I joined a gym, mostly for the showers and structure. I kept to myself. Read more. Wrote sometimes. Not for anyone. Just notes. Thoughts. Fragments. On the second week, I walked into a diner with peeling blue booths and ordered coffee. The waitress smiled and asked, "First time here?" "Yeah," I said. "First time in a lot of places." She didn't ask more. She just poured coffee. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. Sometimes I still wake up thinking I hear her in the shower. Sometimes I still look for her name in my email, half expecting some cruel, delayed apology or some cowardly attempt to explain what can't be explained. But mostly, I don't think of her at all. She's become a ghost that only visits when I'm too tired to lock the door. And even then, she doesn't stay long. I think that's what real recovery looks like. Not forgiveness. Not forgetting. Just indifference. I don't hope she's happy. I don't hope she's miserable. I just hope she stays away. In the new city, I walk more. Not to go anywhere, just to move. I pass strangers every day, and none of them know what I've been through. That used to make me feel untethered. Now it makes me feel free. I'm not the guy whose wife cheated with the therapist here. I'm just a man drinking bad diner coffee and learning how to live again. And that's enough. Some mornings I look in the mirror and still see the cracks. But now I also see the man who didn't shatter. The man who left. The man who started over. Not to prove anything. Not to chase redemption. Just because it was time. I didn't take much when I left the old city. Some books. A couple of framed photos from my childhood. The leather chair I bought with my first real paycheck. And a box of things I haven't opened since, filled with wedding photos, anniversary cards, and a journal she gave me on our second Christmas together. Blank. Still, everything else stayed behind. Sometimes people ask why I didn't try to rebuild with someone new. Why I didn't date, or get back out there, or sign up for some algorithmic soulmate search. I tell them the truth. I needed to learn how to be alone without being lonely. There's a difference. Lonely is waiting for someone to fix you. Alone is realizing you were never broken, just betrayed. I don't believe in fate anymore. Not in everything happens for a reason, or you'll find someone better, or any of the pretty lies we tell people to make them stop bleeding in public. But I do believe in clarity, and I have it now. I know what I will never tolerate again. I know what loyalty looks like, and what its counterfeit smells like in a room with soft lighting and expensive carpet. I know that even the people who say, "I'll never hurt you," can do exactly that and smile while they do it. And I know that walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do. If she ever thinks of me, I hope it's with silence. Not guilt, not regret. Just absence. A void she can't fill. A life she'll never re-enter. Because I'm gone. Not dead. Not ruined. Not bitter. Just gone. And if you ask me where I went, I'll tell you. Forward. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our dramatic stories. See you in the next video.